Hey everyone, and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 69, May the 11th, 2017, and I believe it's Thursday. Well, yesterday was the big firing of James Comey, and we talked about that. Today, of course, is the aftermath, which is probably even more enjoyable watching the liberal media meltdown. So there's a couple things I'm going to touch on. First of all, again, those of you who watch my videos, you know that I have a pretty good handle on Watergate. I was 11 years old when Watergate happened. I was very interested in that, and my parents were pretty strict Republicans, my grandparents as well, and I remember it was the talk of around the dinner table every night as this was playing out, and even though I was only 11 years old, I was very interested in politics at the time, and I watched this whole thing play out. I also read 6 books on the subject. I've watched every documentary there is to watch. And I used to listen to G. Gordon Liddy on his radio show, and every year he would have a special on the anniversary of the date of the Watergate break-in, and he would have all his guests come on, people who were a part of the Watergate thing, and they would have these nice long 3-hour discussions on his radio program. In fact, I think he actually would do it for a full week. So he would go through the Watergate thing every year on the date of the Watergate break-in. So I have a pretty good handle on what happened in Watergate. And so I want to make a comment here on my good friend Jeffrey Toobin. Yes, that hard lefty attorney, and he's a good attorney, I believe, a constitutional law professor. Certainly more educated in constitutional law than I am. But I speak from personal experience and having a pretty good handle on what happened in Watergate. And so he's on MSNBC, I believe, and he's being interviewed, and he's all worked up, and he's saying, you know, this is a constitutional crisis as big as Watergate. And I just had to laugh because I think Jeffrey Toobin knows that that's not true. So I'm just going to give you a brief summary of exactly what we're talking about here and why you cannot compare Trump firing Comey to what happened with Nixon firing Archibald Cox, the special prosecutor. So let's take a look at the Watergate situation. You had, at that time, the dam had already broken. Woodward and Bernstein had already tied the money that was on the burglars in their wallet. The money in their wallet came directly from the campaign to re-elect the president. That took Watergate from a back page story to a front page story, with nobody covering it to everybody covering it. And this is really when the floodgates let go, and this is when it really started getting ramped up. This went on for a period of weeks, and finally there was so much evidence to show that there was possibly very good cause, probable cause, that there was criminal activity within the Nixon administration, that under pressure from the public as well as even Republicans, they appointed a special prosecutor. His name was Archibald Cox. So what happens is they're starting to have hearings, and it is disclosed in these hearings that Nixon has a secret taping system in his office. And so Archibald Cox decides that that should be looked at as part of the evidence. Nixon claims, no, that's my private property, and it's not, should not be subject to being brought in as evidence in this investigation. So Archibald Cox disagreed, and so he went through the legal system to the courts, and eventually the courts ruled that in Cox's favor that yes, Nixon needs to turn over the tapes. This is when all hell broke loose. So what happened was Nixon ordered his chief of staff, I believe it was chief of staff or acting chief of staff, Al Haig, to contact the Attorney General and tell him to fire Archibald Cox. This was known as the Saturday Night Massacre. So they call his Attorney General, who his name I believe was Abrams, and Haig says, yes, direct order of the president, you need to fire the special prosecutor, Archibald Cox. And Abrams says, I'm not going to do that. So he refuses to do it. Instead, he decides to step down. So then Haig calls the deputy Attorney General and says, okay, Abrams is not going to do it. It's a direct order from the president. You need to fire Archibald Cox. He says, I'm not going to do it. So the Attorney General, the Assistant Attorney General both decide they'd rather step down, resign, than fire the special prosecutor. So they finally turned to the third man in line, who I believe was the Solicitor General, who was Robert Bork. And they called Bork and they said, well, it's on you. And Bork says, well, the president's given me an order to do it. I guess I can do it. But after doing so, I guess I should probably resign as well. And that same evening, all hell's breaking loose. Of course, now the media's got the story. The prosecutors working on the case then rush over to Cox's office, and the office where they had been working out of, to protect and preserve the evidence they had accumulated. At which point, Nixon orders the FBI to go over and secure that particular place and make sure that nothing comes in and nothing goes out, meaning evidence. And so then you had a standoff with the FBI there, as well as the individuals who were part of the prosecution team, who were there trying to protect the documents, trying to get the documents out, or trying to bring things in, or whatever. And the FBI guy who was in charge, who'd been working the Watergate story the whole time, he's sent over there, and now you have these people at odds. The FBI director saying you can't take anything out, bring anything in. Of course, these investigators and assistant prosecutors are, of course, defying him, trying to defy him. This turns into quite the fiasco, and so they decide that they're going to hold a news conference. So they go up into this library room where they used to do a lot of work, and they go up there, and they have a big press conference with the media's all there, and it turned into a real fiasco. And then, of course, they actually canceled the evening's TV shows. They broke in. It was news on all three channels. At that time, we had three channels: ABC, CBS, NBC. And it ran through the rest of the night. This constitutional crisis. The president ordering the Attorney General to fire the prosecutor. He refuses. The Deputy Assistant Attorney General refuses to do it. The Solicitor General finally says, I'll do it, but I should resign afterwards. Then you got the FBI in a standoff with the prosecutors over the evidence. They wanted to take the evidence and do something with it, or move it or something. And so then they order all three offices where they had been working to be shut down and locked out, so that these prosecutors couldn't get into the rooms to where the evidence was. It was just a whole fiasco. The whole evening was a huge constitutional crisis. But at that point in time, the game was up for Richard Nixon at that point. It was obvious that some crimes had occurred, or certainly a very good reason to believe crimes had occurred. The money from the burglars had tracked been right back to the committee to reelect. It didn't look good for Nixon at this point, and there was real hard evidence that there was, criminal activity and criminal wrongdoing, and you had the whole fiasco going around it. So that was what was going on with the Saturday Night Massacre and the firing of Archibald Cox. It was a major deal. Here, what we have is that Trump, acting on the advice of his Deputy Attorney General, who's in charge, essentially, of oversight of the FBI director, and has a lot to say about the FBI director. He had a series of meetings and with his people that he meets with, and they had come to the conclusion that Comey was no longer really in control. And of course, there were morale problems at the FBI. Of course, the mishandling of the emails. His constantly talking about, yes, there was an investigation into collusion, but won't comment on it, won't give any information, won't show any real evidence, despite the fact that that we've had Clapper, Brennan, and even Feinstein and everyone else say there's just no evidence of any collusion or anything like that. There is no case. There is no evidence. Totally the opposite of the case of Watergate. And Jeffrey Toobin knows this. He knows this. He knows that there's no evidence against Trump. If there was, we'd have seen it by now. The only thing Comey has got, apparently, is the dossier, which we now know is a fraud, a bunch of people on the internet posting comments. You got Russia Today television that I guess they believe is somehow operating on behalf of the Kremlin. So you really don't have any solid evidence or probable cause, or you have really nothing there. There's just nothing there. Nothing like what was going on with the Saturday Night Massacre and the firing of Archibald Cox. I mean, there's just no comparison. It's completely insane. You know, Nixon's ordering the Attorney General, then the Deputy Attorney General, then the Solicitor General, all to fire Cox, and they all resign. The first two refuse to do it and resign. Bork does it, then resigns. You know, in this case, you don't have any of that going on. It's in fact the Assistant Attorney General who, after a series of meetings, came to the conclusion that Comey is not up to the job and recommended to Trump that he pull the trigger and fire Comey. And you know, Comey has made a lot of mistakes. I mean, he's given every reason to be fired. I actually, like I said in previous videos, think that he should have been fired during the transition period. So I think maybe it was politically a sensitive issue, and that's why Trump didn't do it. But the fact is, we actually do have hearings going on in the Senate and in the House. They're still looking at the Russia thing. There's no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. They are looking at the Russians on their own, maybe interfering. May or not be true. And to some extent, I guess all governments kind of meddle in other governments' elections. We do. We meddle in everybody else's elections. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if the Russians do a little meddling as well. But the collusion between Trump and Russia, there just is none. But this whole idea that the media is trying to compare, you know, the Saturday Night Massacre, the firing of Archibald Cox, and all that went on after that, to compare that to what's going on with Trump firing Comey, I mean, it's just they're not even in the same universe. Completely different circumstances, completely different situation. You know, it's there's just no comparison. I'm really surprised Jeffrey Toobin, he's obviously counting on his audience to be ignorant. So I know a lot of you are too young to remember that. I know a lot of you may not have an interest or know much about it, so that's why I'm telling you, pointing out the difference, that there is not even any similarity at all to the firing of Archibald Cox in the Saturday Night Massacre and Trump firing the FBI director. Archibald Cox had really done nothing, you know, in my mind, in a lot of people's mind. He hadn't really done anything, you know, hadn't stepped beyond any lines. He was a private attorney who had been appointed special prosecutor. He was pursuing the case. He was following the evidence where it led. I personally agree that the decision to fire him was not good, or I don't know if it was even legal, but they did it certainly. Whereas in the case of Trump, I mean, what he did is perfectly legal. The president can fire the FBI director when he loses confidence in his ability to lead the FBI, especially when you have an FBI director who's given you so many reasons. He lays out the case for Hillary and Abaddon, for all the mishandling of classified information, being negligent in handling classified information. He lays out the case, then lets them walk. He grants immunity to half a dozen people, but gets nothing in return. Nobody in law enforcement will ever tell you of any other situation where someone's been given immunity without giving up something. Here, these individuals, Stone Tier, other people, they get immunity, but they give up nothing. They give up no one. You know, I mean, you don't get anything in return. You give immunity, you get nothing in return. I mean, who does that? You know, Comey is, you know, he just hasn't been a very good FBI director. He botched the email thing not just once, but twice. So there just is no comparison whatsoever to the Saturday Night Massacre, the firing of Archibald Cox, and Trump firing the FBI director. So this is all nonsense. It's silliness, and just, you know, take it with a grain of salt. It's just butthurt on behalf of the liberals and the liberal media. They just, you know, they just can't stand it that Trump won the election. That's basically what it boils down to. And you know, I actually think there's this part of my mind that makes me think that Trump just loves tweaking the media, that he just loves playing with their heads, that he loves triggering them. I think he actually gets a kick out of it because he knows exactly how they're going to respond to this. And so I think he actually enjoys it. So that's what's funny about it, is that I think that we've been seeing how we saw how he played his opponents in the media during the primaries, during the general, and he continues to do it over and over again, and they just don't learn. They never seem to understand what's being done to them, but Trump is playing these people. He's playing them like a violin, and it's funny for me to sit back and observe this. I mean, it's extraordinary. These are extraordinary times. But anyway, that's my thoughts on this ridiculous comparison to the Saturday Night Massacre that happened during Watergate with the firing of the prosecutor and Trump firing the FBI director. There's absolutely no comparison whatsoever. And Jeffrey Toobin, for all his skills and talents as a lawyer and a constitutional lawyer, I think he's being disingenuous. I think he knows that. He's counting on the ignorance of the public, and they just want to try to make this a much bigger story than it is. And then you've got Schumer out there and Pelosi and the whole crew. They're out there now talking about as if James Comey was this great unwashed, savior, this great servant of the law, this great FBI director, when back 11 days before the election, when he reopened the Hillary Clinton case, they all thought he should be hanged. He was incompetent, he was corrupt, he was this, he was that. So they've completely flipped. I mean, they hate Comey, he was horrible. Now they love Comey, and he's someone who has been wronged. And Schumer's calling for a special prosecutor. What the hell's a special prosecutor going to investigate, Chuck? The president fired the FBI director. He's allowed to do it. Did he have cause and reason to do it? Yes. He was given information. He was given information from his attorney general, who's generally that's part of his job. The attorney general, assistant attorney general, they are kind of like an overseer of the FBI director, and they made the recommendation to the president that he fire Comey because they feel that people have lost confidence in him, that he's bungled a lot of things, and that the morale at the FBI is very low. A lot of people at the FBI are not very happy with the way he's done things. He has not been an effective FBI director. He's not been good at his job. And if you're really not very good at your job, at some point, you will probably get let go. And that's what happened to James Comey, plain and simple. And, appoint a special prosecutor? What the hell is he going to investigate? You go to the special prosecutor when you have probable cause that there has been a crime committed. Trump has committed no crime. He's perfectly within his legal right as the president of the United States to fire the FBI director at any time, or hell, just about anybody he can fire at about any time. So in his administration or anyone in the bureaucracy, he can fire this. He could fire the CIA director tomorrow. He could fire the NSA director tomorrow. He could fire his attorney general. He could fire his assistant attorney general. He could fire the deputy. He could fire this guy, that guy. He can fire a hell of a lot of people. He's the president of the United States. He can fire a lot of people. And we know that Trump's pretty good at firing people, but we know he does that. If he doesn't like the way someone's performing, he fires them. He's known for that. It's part of his shtick. It's part of why we love him. I can think of a lot of people that should be fired. Hopefully he'll continue. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. I just don't understand these the Democratic Party, the leadership, their strategy seems to be that they're going to try to play this Russia thing, and the whole time this is going on, that party's in disarray. I have friends who are Bernie Sanders supporters, and they're all fired up about starting a new party. They want Bernie to head up a new party. These people hate the corporate Democrats. The Democrats are probably going to run Hillary again in 2020, and I can promise you she'll get far less votes than she got last time. She'll get beat even worse. I mean, they have a major problem in the Democratic Party. They are not addressing the problems that they have no message, that they have no plan, they have no policies. The only thing they've got is to attack Trump and to try to attack him on things that have no basis. And in fact, they seem to be in complete disarray. And I'm quite happy for that because I don't like the Democratic Party, and I enjoy watching them melt down. I enjoy knowing that they're probably going to lose seats in 2018 when just about always you gain seats in the 2018 election or the midterm election. If you're the party out of power, almost always happens. You gain seats. They may not gain any seats at all. They may lose seats. They may do worse than even the status quo. And they could probably get beat really bad in 2020. The fact of the matter is, most people vote the economy. If come 2018, the economy's pretty good, people got jobs, they feel pretty secure about things, the unemployment rate is low, gas is low, gas price is under, $2.50 a gallon, like in my area of the country, or low wherever you are in your area of the country. Hey man, if you got cheap gas, the economy's good, and you got a job, the president and his party usually do pretty good in the midterms, and the president usually gets elected. And at least Trump has policies. The Democrats seem to have no policies, no plans. They don't seem to realize that their own party is in complete disarray and is splitting. It's cracking up. The entire progressive wing of that party is heading for the door. It's just extraordinary to watch. I don't think I've ever seen this level of incompetency from either of the political parties, and I've seen some high levels of incompetency in both, but I've never seen anything quite like this. And of course, Trump is it's a feeding frenzy for him. It pumps up his base when they do this. I don't think they realize this, but when Trump does this kind of stuff and triggers them, and then they go on TV and make these speeches and talk about all this stuff and try to overplay their hand the way they do, it only fires up Trump's base. And I think it actually increases his base because people like seeing this kind of stuff. I mean, Donald Trump understands public perception. He had a #1 rated television show for 11 years. It's not because he's an idiot. He knows exactly what he's doing and how to play the media. He is a very smart media person. So, and he's just killing the Democrats, and it's enjoyable to watch, quite honestly. Anyhow, the news today is pretty much nothing really going on in TowerGate, although the last couple days last week it was just some extraordinary new evidence coming out about Rand Paul coming out. Of course, we get the ACLU discovering from the Freedom of Information Act, getting tens of thousands of documents showing 33,000 some odd people surveilled, a 26% increase. The whole surveillance side of it, the evidence is coming out big time, and it's leading more towards real reason for a real investigation specifically of that, and a special prosecutor to specifically look at that, at the surveillance, not just on Trump, his team, but other people as well. And the whole time that's happening, you have the liberals melting down, continuing to try to play this Russia-Trump collusion story, which has been questioned or denied, not just by the head of the CIA, the head of the NSA, the DIA, even Senator Turn In Your Guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein. Even she says there's no evidence whatsoever of collusion. So it's incredible that the Democrats would ride this dead horse, and they just keep kicking this dead horse thinking it's going to gallop, and it ain't. Your horse is dead. Once your horse is dead, you can kick it all you want. It ain't going to gallop, okay? So it's just extraordinary to watch. And again, until something more exciting comes and knocks this story off the front page, the meltdown over Comey's firing will continue to be probably the thing that people are talking about. So I just really tonight wanted to point this out again, because I'm pretty well informed on Watergate, and the people are making comparisons to Watergate, and I just wanted to let you guys know that there's no comparison to Watergate whatsoever. I mean, in the firing of Archibald Cox, it's ridiculous. So pay no mind. Just enjoy the show. And anyway, I thank you all for subscribing to my channel and for tuning in every day. And we'll just keep following the story. Things are definitely breaking our way. We just have to be patient, stay on the story, and I'm sure things will turn out fine. So you guys have a good night, and I'll be back tomorrow. So that's day 69 of TowerGate, May the 11th, 2017. Y'all take care.